The variety in the slave's accounts makes it clear how much a slave lived at the whim of his master. The masters were like feudal lords, setting their own laws and their own penalties. Some masters were kind, resisting any corporal punishment, and engendered true affection in their slaves. But they did this by choice, and by choice, other masters enforced their will with an iron fist. As people have done throughout history, slaves often found solace in religion. Early in colonial history, spreading the Christian gospel was considered so important that the baptism of a slave could be given as evidence for why he or she should be free. The planters, through the colonial governments, clarified in the law that baptism did not change a slave's circumstance. In the early colonial years, Africans tried to maintain their own religions. These might be indigenous African beliefs, or often Islam. There are indications that some of George Washington's slaves were Muslim, as were many slaves who came from North Africa. Many slaves brought with them an African belief that the world was populated by petulant spirits who must be appeased, else they would cause trouble. Appeasing the spirits took the form of dogmas and rituals that have been called voodoo. Whites were both dismissive of and threatened by these practices and worked to eliminate them. In the mid-1700s, slaves began converting to Christianity in large numbers as part of a religious revival that swept the English colonies. Protestant ministers preached an evangelical faith and practice that blended well with African rituals. It emphasized emotional, spiritual music, rebirth, and religious fervor. As slaves accepted Christianity, it was generally laid over the practices their parents had brought from Africa and developed its own forms and styles. But in general, there was little concerted effort to convert slaves to Christianity during the colonial years. Following the American Revolution, that would change.